This is part 2 of the joint tutorial. In this case, we're going to take a very simple character and smooth it so it's got a little bit more to work with and create joints and rig it. I recommend setting up your grid so that once you're in side view, you can reliably use grid snap to place your joints at reasonable locations rather than just pointing them freely. Okay, I'm going to grab the skeleton joint tool and just start creating joints. The first joint we always create, there's grid snap. The first joint we always create is hip center. This is always the center of our character. This is where we pull characters around when we're blocking out scenes. It's just a convention we got to stick to. I'm going to create one joint up so that we get some bend in the middle of the body. Another one up for the collar, going to the middle of the neck, top of the head. I actually fixed this later in the video. I'm missing a joint here. Click on the joint tool again, and I'm going to start making the shoulder now. So I'm going to start at the collarbone here. Going to the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and then the end of the hand. Sometimes grid snap's going to work against you here. That's okay. It's fine to turn it off and then turn it back on again after you've placed something the way you like it. We can rejoin these back to the regular skeleton just by selecting the child joint, shift-clicking where we want it to attach to, and then pressing P. I'm going to jump back into the joint tool here and start drawing the legs. So we start with the other hip model, top of the femur, right? Go down to the knee, the ankle, and the foot. More detailed rigs, we'd actually put the toe in as well, or multiple toes if you want to get really fancy. Make sure you're looking in top, front, and side view and arranging this to actually work in 3 dimensions, not just one. And make sure there's a slight bend in the knees, the way our knees actually bend as opposed to the way our knees don't bend. This will lead to ostrich legs later in rigging if they start off bending the wrong way. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start naming these joints. There is a specific formula that we follow for naming these joints. Some people do it differently, but the formula I'm following here is the first letter of the side of the body. So this is C for center. The arms and legs will be L and R for left and right. Then it's the name of the joint. So I'm jumping back and forth between bones and areas and technical terms, a little bit loosey-goosey on that, and then you follow it by underscore JNT because these are joints. You'll find people who do J underscore whatever, underscore R or L for left or right. Just use what's in this video for now. There's plenty of time to readapt to someone else's naming convention later. This is the part I mentioned earlier where I realized that I missed a joint. We actually need a joint just above the collar so that we can rotate the neck around without having to rotate the entire body around. So you can see I'm renaming skull base to neck base. And then I'm creating a new joint for the end of the skull. And that would be the skull end. It's very important that we name things on the left side of the body with an L, and on the right side of the body with an R. There's a shortcut we're going to be taking in a minute here that automatically duplicates half the joints for us, so we don't need to make arms twice or legs twice. Again, these hands are very, very basic, right? They aren't hands, they're just mitts. So these mitts are just going to pivot a fist around, as opposed to actually rigging fingers, which we'll do in a later class. Again, while you're naming joints, it's still fine to go and move them around if you find a better place for them. All of this has to happen, naming and moving has to happen before we do the smooth bind. That's our deadline in our Maya file, kind of. We want everything to be nice and organized before we bind it, because fixing something like this after it's bound can often result in having to unbind it and then bind it again. At this point, I'm opening up the outliner and I'm looking at all the joints here, making sure everything is named properly. In this case, I noticed an error and corrected it. Make sure everything is named. We don't want a joint 5 or joint 7 hiding in here among the other joints. So now I'm going to do my fancy shortcut. You select just the arm or just the leg, not all the joints, just the root joint, and use the mirror joint options. Notice I'm doing it across YZ, and I'm search and replacing L with R, because it's left being replaced with right. There you go. Automatically duplicates it across the body. Huge time saver. Again, important that you name your joints properly in order for this to work, and important that you work with proper grid units, because it's mirroring based on the joint's center being center. I'm going to select all the joints, make sure everything is collapsed, everything has a negative icon instead of a plus icon next to it. Select all the joints with the poly surface, skin smooth bind, and you can see that weights need to be painted pretty badly, but this is now bound.